I'm Becky Fawcett, a mom by adoption, an infertile blonde, a female founder, and a businesswoman. Podcast rulebooks will say your introduction must always be the same for every episode. My guess is mine won't be, especially today, because I'm talking to another mom by adoption, female founder and businesswoman. For most of my life, I tried to be perfect and do what everyone else was doing. And then I tried to have children. That's my plot twist. Now I look for any opportunity to be different. I'm an outspoken advocate who wants to change the world, and this sometimes gets me into trouble. But for the most part, it helps me make real connections with real people. Welcome to my podcast, The Fawcett Report, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, my guest is someone that I have never met in person. She is an incredibly strong woman who inspires me to work harder for change. And in 1978, when she was 17, she was forced to make a life-changing decision for both her and her child against her will. Her story was not honored. She was not treated with dignity or respect. And as I have told her, since the day we first spoke on the phone 17 years ago, it's time she was honored. Please meet my brave friend, Bridget. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, thank you.
Bridget, before we go into your story, and for those of you who haven't figured it out, Bridget is a birth mother from the closed era of adoption. But I want to tell your story of how you and I met for the first time, because I didn't see it coming, and maybe you didn't see this friendship coming either. But boy, is it a good friendship. And we first connected over a helpusadopt.org bracelet that you purchased in 2008. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I was just looking through magazines and I picked one up at the counter at checkout, take home, read the magazine, turned it over to the back cover, and there was your beautiful face with the original Help Us Adopt bracelet. When I read that bracelet was to help honor birth mothers who placed a leaf on somebody's tree, it just floored me. I had never seen anything positive for a birth mother. It was always negative. So I decided I had to have that bracelet. I had no idea where my daughter was, nothing. I just needed that bracelet. I knew I needed it. So I filled out the order form. They have a little card, and I put a little note in, just briefly explaining a little bit of my situation. Lo and behold, about 2 weeks later, it was early evening, and my phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was Becky on the other end. Oh, to say that took my breath away, and it still does to this day. She was the first thank you I ever got. She was the first person that ever really wanted to know my story, my side of the adoption, what I went through. And we just connected instantly. And I think we talked for close to an hour that night. And I can remember after getting off the phone with Rebecca, I broke down. I think I had 30 years of gut-wrenching hurt that after I talked to Becky, it just all come flooding out. I was sobbing so hard. My husband didn't know what was going on. I just kept giving him, I'm okay, until I could breathe and talk.
Yeah, I got your order. I'll never forget. Help Us Adopt was a year old. So I got Bridget's order for the bracelet. This is back in the dark ages before we had an online store. And she wrote a note that she was a birth mother and she could not believe that we dedicated this bracelet. I dedicated this bracelet to my children's birth mothers who changed my life for their brave and courageous journey. And you put your phone number, and I thought, why not? And I called you, and you told me some pretty grim stuff, Bridget. Not that I didn't know it happened, but I had never met a birth mother from the closed era who wasn't treated very much like a human. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what happened when you were 17 and how you were treated. This goes into my daily work every day of, I hope the world is listening right now, because the story Bridget is about to tell you is not the story any woman who finds herself with an unexpected pregnancy should be treated, ever.
Like you said, I was 17, found myself pregnant, left alone. My family was in major turmoil at the time. It all started with a trip to social services to see if I could get some help so I could keep my baby. I was underage, so that was a no-go. Couldn't get any help. And the lady brought up adoption. I was, no adoption. That's not going to happen. I was with my mother. I said no and got up and walked out and waited for my mother to come out. My mom had taken the card. I didn't know. Went home, talked to my father about it, and I was told the baby needed to go up for adoption. I didn't want the baby to go up for adoption. I was assigned a caseworker without me signing any paperwork. A caseworker came to my house and talked to me, and I was still, no, I'm not doing this. So every month, the caseworker came, and in the meantime, I had my father in the background stating, this baby is not coming into my house, and you need to take care of this. You got yourself into this, you better get yourself out. No baby's coming home. And then, to make matters even worse, my mother ended up in a mental hospital when I was about 7 months along. So that gave my dad and the caseworker more time to work on me, tell me I wasn't going to be a fit mother. My baby deserved more than a mother on welfare. My baby deserved two parents. What made me think at 17 that I could raise a child on my own. There was never any offer to help or to guide me. And this took place for a couple of months, constant barrage. I wasn't really allowed out of my house a whole bunch when I started showing. I had a couple close friends who knew. One was a struggling single mother, struggling very hard. That was the one place my parents wanted to take me and drop me off. They wanted me to see what it was going to be like. My mom came home from the mental institution, and 2 days later, my water broke in the middle of the night. I never told anybody, didn't wake nobody up. I laid there in bed. I didn't know what to do. When I heard my mother get up that morning, I told her, and from that point on, I went to the hospital with my older sister and was told I was in labor and I wasn't going home. This was February 17th. I wasn't due to March 28th. After a while, I was in the hospital laboring, and my mother came. One thing I can really remember that stuck with me, I was crying through a labor pain, and my mom said, you didn't cry when you got pregnant. You're not crying now.
Oh, Bridget.
That is something that really has stuck. I realize now my parents were doing what they thought was best for me. It was a different era. They didn't know how to handle it. And back in those days, you were called names, friends all of a sudden stopped contacting. Can you come over? No, my mom won't let me hang out with you anymore. I lost my senior year of school. I wasn't allowed to go to games to watch people play basketball and stuff.
You weren't allowed to be a normal teenager.
I had people in my immediate family that didn't even know I was pregnant until we found my daughter. That's how much of a secret it was kept. But the constant that you're going to be a welfare mom, you're going to be a welfare mom, that was just driven into my head so much. And I didn't want to be a welfare mom. I took my baby home for 2 days. And in them 2 days, every night, my bedroom was next to my parents. I laid in bed and listened to my parents fight and argue over me and my baby. On the second day, I decided I can't raise her in this atmosphere. I have no place to go. I have nobody to help me. So I picked up the phone and I called the caseworker. And I said, could you please come and get Danielle?
You named her Danielle.
I named her Danielle. Danielle Joanne.
So fast forward, I know you and I have had conversations over the years. That's not always how it works now. And I always told you that my children's birth mothers actually got counseling and got to pick me as the mom. And you weren't given all of these even common courtesies. And that's even seems to me like a silly thing to call them because we're talking about human beings and their lives. I always encouraged you when I first met you because I remember I called you brave and I've called my children's birth mothers brave. And I know most birth mothers, when you use that word, they say absolutely not. And when I say hero, you say absolutely not. And it breaks my heart. You know how you said that you got off the phone with me and you cried for hours? I do too over these stories because I tell people all the time, I have been a staunch defender of birth mother rights because when I adopted my children, who are now 15 and 19, but when I first came home with Jane 19 years ago, some friends didn't say, oh, congratulations. They said, what was the birth mother's problem? Was she on drugs? Was she poor? Was she what? I was really taken aback. And I think to one friend, I was a little mean, but this is what I said. I said, I think the word you're looking for is congratulations, Becky, you're a mother. And I said, I'm going to keep her birth mother's story private because it's not yours to share. It's not mine to share. It's between Jane and her. And I remember the first friend I said that to, and she felt awful. She realized what she had done. But that's what the world tells you, right? And I said, the world has created this picture of what a birth mother is. And the world needs to wake up and realize that a birth mother is just that. She's a woman. She's pregnant. She's giving birth to a baby. And she may not parent that child. She may find another family. And it really is something that the world needs to wake up and realize that it could be any woman out there who gets pregnant at 17. I am so sorry. And I said this 17 years ago when we first spoke on behalf of the world, Bridget. I'm sorry you were treated that way. What I'm not sorry about is that you have decided to lead with that truth, no matter how messy it was. And I've watched you over the years share this story. And it helps. How many women have you connected with through your work on social media and groups you've been a part of? How many other birth mothers have you connected with and shared your story with who felt all alone and now realized you're not all alone? There's a whole community of you.
Thousands from all over the world, not just the United States. It's just all over. And everybody's story is different, but everybody's story ends the same in my generation. That baby was gone, you didn't know where, and you didn't know who.
So let's share with our listeners today now what happened next in our friendship. One day you mentioned to me that exactly what you just said. I've always wondered. And here's where I said in my intro to this podcast that I'm a little outspoken and sometimes it gets me into trouble and sometimes I don't have a filter. And what did I say for you? I said, do you want to find her? Let's be honest. I had no business saying that to you. And I was like, do you want to find her? What if we could find her? And you said what?
Let's go. Let's find
Let's
my
go.
girl.
Let's go. I put on my Nancy Drew hat, which, God, I loved reading those books in the library growing up, the Nancy Drew mystery series. She was so smart. I put on my Nancy Drew hat. I knew a few people. And what did we do together, Bridget? What did we do?
We found my daughter.
We found your daughter. And I will never forget, first of all, it was cool. And I'm sorry what you had to go through, but finding her with you was a very cool thing for me to be a part of and to help make that happen. And before the DNA test came back, you sent me the split screen picture. And We didn't need a DNA test to come back, did we?
No, we didn't. We are identical. She
Yeah.
looks just like me. In fact, the day that I contacted her and we talked, she had that same picture up on her computer screen when we were talking, the split picture. And at the time, I think her daughters were probably like 8 or 9. And her one daughter walked behind her and looked at the picture and she said, "Mommy, who is that lady? And how come she looks just like you?" Maybe 2 hours later, we were standing in a parking lot outside of a Pizza Hut, and we were hugging for the first time in 35 years.
How good did that hug feel?
I can't even explain it. I knew that once I got my arms around her, that this time nobody could take her. Nobody could take her.
Fast forward, my girls, we have 2 open adoptions. And both my girls, when Jane had her first meeting with her birth mother and Brooke had her first meeting with her birth father, and when they had time alone, I asked both girls, I said, "So what'd you talk about?" And they sort of gave me the side eye, wondering. And I go, "I'm guessing I know what you asked them. And I want to know what you asked them because I hope you did." And they said, "I asked why." I think this is one of the pieces when you met Danielle. Did she ask you why? Did
No.
you share that story? No?
No.
It didn't matter, I guess, at that point.
No. She's never fully sat down and let me tell her my story. Never. And we found her, and it was 2013 or 2015. Never been able to explain my side of the story. She doesn't want to hear it because, in her eyes, my family didn't want her. She knows I wanted her, but in her eyes, my family didn't want her. So we don't discuss anything about my side of the story.
Until now on the
No.
Fawcett Report.
Yeah. I don't even know if she'll listen to this when it airs, but we've only ever been alone once. I took her out for lunch for her birthday, and never once did she ask me a question about it. I think she has her own demons that she has to deal with, and with this adoption, and it's hard to deal with these demons that follow you all your life.
I wasn't the social worker involved in this case. I don't know. But from what I see now, there was no adoption education back then to even teach an adoptee. A lot of the times today, it's not great either. I have been very instrumental in my own kids' lives and talking to other people about educating my girls on what a birth parent is and what the story was, and that the terms to keep or not to keep, it's not the right language at all. And it's not kind language for a kid to grow up thinking she didn't keep you. It's a different story if you really know adoption. And now with open adoption, it is different. And I've told you this before, because people like you were brave enough to share your stories and adoptees shared their stories from the closed era saying this is no good. Open adoption came into the world, and I am a parent through open adoption, and my life is richer for it. And I never thought I'd say that. I always was scared of it, to be honest. I thought I was doing it mostly for my children. I thought I was doing it a little for their birth parents. I didn't think I was doing it at all for me. And I'm the lucky one in that threesome. I really am the lucky one. And I always ask my girls this, and I'm going to ask you this. I ask my girls the best thing about being adopted and the worst thing about being adopted. So I could ask you, I think I know what your worst thing is about being a birth mother, but what's the best thing for you about being a birth mother?
I didn't give up. I carried it through. I carried her through to the end. And I didn't give up. For years, I said I gave up. I didn't give up. I gave life, and that to me is a miracle.
Yeah,
What,
it's a miracle.
what before, what didn't go on afterwards can fall by the sides because I carried that baby full term. I loved her. I nurtured her. I brought her into the world as a healthy baby. And that's what the most important thing is to me. That she came into this world, then didn't go into a garbage can.
It is a good thing. And you're using your story to change things for others, for adoptive parents, to talk about the importance of this. Hopefully for other women who find themselves in crisis pregnancy, you can change this to advocate for yourselves, to find social workers and adoption professionals or just crisis pregnancy people that will help you advocate for yourself. And if you could change something in the world of adoption for women like you, what would you like to see change?
I kind of have already had a big part of change in the world of adoption, especially for my era. What I would really like to see is 2 birth certificates, a certificate of birth, a certificate of adoption that go with each baby. So that
Can we talk about this for a minute? Because yes, let's explain to my listeners who maybe don't know about adoption. I always like to use myself as an example, so I'm not telling anybody else's story. But Jane, when she was born, her birth mother got to name her, and her birth mother went on the birth certificate as the mother. That's how it works in adoption. And then we adopted her. Great. And it takes a while to get, they call it an amended birth certificate. But even for Becky and Jane Fawcett, Jane was born in 2005. Do you know her original birth certificate is sealed? It's ridiculous. First of all, I know what's on it, number one. And number two, her birth mother 19 years later is still in our lives. But when I got the amended birth certificate with Jane Fawcett on it, the name we gave her, and I was the mother and my husband was marked on the birth certificate as the father. I'm going to tell you something. I knew that I had done the best possible sort of adoption. It was totally ethical. Jane's birth mother, as I told you, is still in our lives 19 years later. Not that it was easy for her, but we're all good with the fact. I always felt strange looking at that birth certificate. My name was on it. Kip's name was on it. Jane's name was on it. That's not Jane's whole story. And Brooke's got the same thing. And Brooke's original birth certificate is sealed too. It's ridiculous. This is in today's day and age. It keeps this whole story of shame and secrecy moving forward in more generations. And I don't like it. And my girls, I talk to my girls about it. There's nothing off the table in our house. But you're right, Bridget. You really helped open up birth certificates for people in certain states. And that was great advocacy work because I tell everybody this. Everybody deserves to know their story. There's a lot of opinions in this world about adoption, but the number one thing that you really can't argue with is adoptees need to know their story. They need to know they're adopted and they need to know where they come from. It's part of who they are. It doesn't mean that my girls and I aren't a family, but it's part of who they are. It's really important to honor that story. And I've been proud to do that in my work. I've been proud to talk about you. There's not enough people saying that the truth really matters in adoption and transparency really matters in adoption. It can just mean more love, bigger families and more love.
And transparency from the beginning. Kids will flourish if they know their story from the beginning. You don't hide secrets and then they're 18 years old and they find out. That's devastating for people. But I really believe with all the work that Help Us Adopt does, people are getting more educated. People are trying. There's quite a few really good birth mothers out there that have made amazing leaps and bounds in educating our adoption fields. That's the goal.
I've always wanted to do a roundtable event with birth mothers and adoptees from the closed era who may not view the world as so great in adoption land and people like me, and not to be cruel to each other, but to listen. Because I really do think that we all have more in common than we're willing to admit. I really do think that we're all in this together. And listen, some don't agree with me. That's fine. But I'm raising two incredible young women who are very confident about being adopted. They are confident about who they are. They are confident about their open adoptions. They educate others. Jane specifically has told me, because I've asked her, what's the hardest thing about being adopted? She goes, there's only one thing that's hard about being adopted, and it's the way the rest of the world views it.
Amen, Jane. Oh,
that's it. And Brooke said, worst thing about being adopted is when I meet other kids, she's 15, and I find out they're adopted and they don't want to talk about it. They think it's a bad thing. They're ashamed. So that makes me so sad because I can't figure out where it went wrong. And that's a 15-year-old saying that. And this is it. I tell them all the time, life's not perfect. Everybody's got a sad story somewhere. Now, adoption can really be sad, but I also think that the stigmas that surround all of us in adoption, especially birth mothers, they're no good anymore. They never were any good. Stigmas. They're no good. So it's time to break those. It's what we do a lot in our advocacy work at Help Us Adopt. And I'm afraid of saying nothing. It doesn't bother me at all. And we're going to change this. And you're going to keep sharing your story. And I see you're wearing your Face of Adoption sweatshirt, which I'm so proud of, my trademarked storytelling platform. There were years, decades, generations where no one would even admit they had anything to do with adoption. And now, thanks to helpusadopt.org, people are wearing this on their sweatshirt. Tell me how that feels.
Makes me proud, Becky. Makes me so proud to be part of an organization that is ethical, that wants the best for all sides of the triad. In fact, I'm leaving for Florida on vacation in a couple of weeks. This is going with me. I'm wearing it onto the airplane. I don't have a chance to wear it in Florida, but I have worn it here a lot. And I have had people ask me, what is Face of Adoption? I wish every time I wore this shirt, at least 50 people would ask me.
Yeah, they're going to start. They're going to start. It's important.
It is. It's time to come into this century. We don't need to be stuck back before in the 50s, in the 60s, early 70s. This is time to let people know children need homes, babies need homes. Everybody needs to listen and learn. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to just ask. Just want to learn and listen with an open heart. That's what I ask for people that don't know anything about adoption or think they know. That's what really gets me. People that have no idea, never have anything to do with adoption, but they're going to be the first ones to tell you what's going on and how it should be and how it shouldn't be. But the more we talk, Becky, the more we spread, the more the love, the more the understanding, the more no more secrets. Let's make this an open, honest discussion that enlightens everybody.
It's really true. And I do want to also add, for people who don't know about adoption these days, if you do an open domestic adoption, as part of the cost is to take care of expectant mothers while they're pregnant and matched with you. So what does that mean? That means when the two women that carried my children were pregnant and they picked me to be the adoptive mother while we were matched, there was money every month that took care of them. If they needed a place to live, it took care of them. And if it gave them food, counseling, transportation to the doctor's office, all these things, it's care now. It's open, loving care. And I'm going to also talk about, I had a failed adoption a year before Brooke came home. And some people don't know what that means. And what that means is I was matched with a woman who was pregnant, said she wanted me to adopt. Baby was born, and she couldn't do it. And there are laws that give a woman who gives birth in an adoption plan, every state's different, certain number of hours and days to change her mind and to finally sign the papers. And in that case scenario, she decided to parent the little girl that was born. And I tell people this all the time. They're like, was that hard? I'm like, oh my gosh, it was gut-wrenching. But it wasn't my baby. It wasn't my baby. And yes, it was gut-wrenching. That's a hard situation around the board. But I supported her decision then. I support it now. I now have my Brooke, who came into the world a year later. But I called the woman when she changed her mind. And I said, I'm calling you. And I know this is very strange, but I'm outspoken and I sometimes get into trouble. I said, I want to tell you something. Go love her. Don't worry about me. This wasn't my baby. And it's really important to tell, if the true changing of the mind to parent is there, women need to be supported in it. Now, some days, I hate to say this, there's fraud cases in today's day and world, and that's not okay. But if it's a true change of heart to parent a child, I stand behind that decision. And I wish more adoptive parents would, because that's how we all have to treat each other.
I'd like to add just one thing. We were talking about care and like you paid for aftercare. No, there was nothing.
You back then, there was nothing for you.
Nothing. I had no counseling, no nothing. The day I went to sign the papers, my mother drove me. She sat in the car. I walked into social services by myself, sat in the little closet of a room by myself with the caseworker across from me, signed the papers. She said, thank you, Bridget. I was done. Just wash our hands. We don't need anything else from you, and we've got nothing for you. Nothing. No counseling. It was just nothing. Like I said, they just went out the door. And that's why I believe so much in open adoptions.
It's so important. And it's not always possible. I do like to always say that caveat. There are some situations where it's not always possible and people try. And believe it or not, I hear a lot of closed adoptions because the birth mother doesn't want it. And I'm going to tell you this. In my gut, I think that's because no one educated her as to what it would be, what it could be. The hope of knowing this. And I've heard some birth mothers say to me, I'm worried that the child I place is going to hate me. I said, I don't think so. At least not in my house. That's not how I've raised my girls. We honor birth mothers in the Fawcett household, and I talk about honoring birth mothers every day. Bridget, wear that sweatshirt proudly. Keep continuing to share your story. I will share it on my end, and I'm so grateful that you want to be a part of the work that helpusadopt.org does in the advocacy world, because Lord knows we need it.
Thank you, Becky. This is so close to my heart. I've been through some things in the last couple of years. It gives me a purpose. It gives me a purpose. I don't want anybody to go through what I want. Like you said, if the mother needs a closed adoption, she needs it. I just want to educate. I don't want what happened to me to happen to another girl.
Exactly. We just want kind and compassionate and ethical treatment.
Exactly.
For all humans in adoption land. So, Bridget, thank you so much for being here today. Your voice and your story is changing the world. I'm so proud to know you. And we're going to get you to New York City one of these days.
Thank you for giving me a voice.
Thank you for being my friend, always. 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett. So in my conversations with Bridget about she was a teen mom who placed her baby for adoption in a world of shame and secrecy. And one of the things she talked about was how people judged her and how there were stigmas surrounding her situation and that she wanted to tell her story. I totally get that because in my life, in the infertile world and adopting, and God, half the time I'm misunderstood because people mistake passion for anger and people think whatever they want to think about you. And 9 out of 10 times, it's a really bad way to go through life because you're usually wrong if you're going to judge someone. And everybody wants to defend. But now I don't defend so much anymore. You can be wrong about me all you want. Sometimes the brave thing is to let people be wrong about you. And you just keep moving because the people who understand who you are and understand exactly what you're doing and give you that respect and kindness are the only ones that matter. So let them be wrong about you. Don't defend. Just keep moving. 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett. Thank you for listening to the Fawcett Report. I'm so glad you were here today. And here's to seeing the world a little differently and possibly using your voice to make a difference. You can follow the Fawcett Report on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And you can message me on Instagram or Facebook. And I will actually respond as long as you're not mean. You can disagree with me. You can share your point of view, but you can't be mean because I don't do mean. And finally, if you're curious about my adoption advocacy and family building work through helpusadopt.org, you can find us there on Instagram and Facebook, as well as through the website, helpusadopt.org. See you next time.